Good evening to all of us who have come in love and support. Good evening to all of us who are still coming around the block and many who are not able to make it into this building. This is a remarkable thing. I am Rabbi Adam Stock-Spilker, a rabbi here at Mount Zion Temple. Welcome to all of us. Thank you to the organizations who created this Interfaith Vigil. These people you will hear from shortly, and I want to thank the organizers for allowing the Mount Zion clergy to frame the beginning of this gathering before they take over. I do want to just mention about being in this space right now that exits are in the back of the sanctuary through the doors. You can also go through the kitchen, through this door, and through this door. And bathrooms are in the lobby area right through the wall over here. We do have a unisex bathroom in the kitchen area. Friends, it is good to be together. At a time such as this, feeling part of a larger community is so powerful. We are people of many faiths and people of no faith. We are all people who have been shaken by a heinous anti-Semitic event, by yet another mass shooting in America. Love is stronger than hate, more prevalent than hate. But hate needs only one person to cause such a tragedy. Tonight we say enough. Enough to violence. Enough to hateful words that breed possibilities of violence. Words have consequences. They are sown and bred in the hearts of individuals who act on that hate. And we call on all of our leaders, our cultural, religious, educational, and political leaders to speak out unequivocally against hate, against fear-mongering. To think that a sanctuary, just listen to that word, sanctuary, to think that a sanctuary might be violated. Our sense of safety is shattered. It is heinous and deplorable. And it almost happened last Wednesday in Kentucky, when a white supremacist killed 2 people in a grocery store instead of a church that he couldn't get into. It happened 3 years ago. Many of us were at an interfaith vigil like this after the shooting deaths of 9 people at Mother Emanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church. On this past Shabbat, the Jewish community was the target. We have heard from so many people in our community, as have all of the synagogues in our community, of good people reaching out in support. Among the many letters that I received from faith leaders, including from Imam Asad Zaman of the Muslim American Society of Minnesota, Pastor Dr. Charles Gill of Pilgrim Baptist Church, I want to read one letter that we received from our friends at Glory Day Lutheran Church. Rabbi Spilker, Adam, my colleague and friend, the people of Glory Day stand alongside the people of Mount Zion Temple, as well as the people of Tree of Life Congregation, crying out to God for healing, for an end to hatred and injustice, for the freedom to name our children as citizens of a peaceful world. Our hearts break that such evil can be done to such faithful and good people. We cannot imagine how the murders in Pittsburgh make every Jewish community question its safety, causing fear in the simple act of gathering for worship. The specter of the dark past becomes once again an imagined and tangible threat. We stand with you even as we Lutherans once again confess any complicity in the dark history of anti-Semitism that continues to be made manifest in such heinous acts. We truly seek to make amends. We lament that our nation's highest officials seem to give permission for such violent and hateful speech. We commit to being a church that stands against such rhetoric, a church that works for peace, a church that sees the image of God in people of all faiths. We treasure the relationship that we have had for so many years. We pray blessing on your congregation as you gather to remember and grieve. We lift you and every sibling in the Jewish community into the hands of our loving and faithful God, who promises to heal our broken hearts. With this God, we promise to join you in the work of mending the entire universe. Peace, Bradley. Pastor Bradley Schmeling. Thank you, Bradley, and to all people of all faiths, to all of you, for being here. Your presence is healing. In a moment, I am going to ask you to rise. We will sound the ram's horn, the shofar, an ancient call to community, an ancient sound that evokes deep emotion, many emotions all at once. As we listen and feel, I will darken the lights of the sanctuary, and we will see before us this eternal flame, the eternal light of resilience, of God's love, of hope. We will be surrounded in the sanctuary by many people holding lights of faith, of courage, of community. And after the sound of the shofar, we will stand in silence for a full minute. A full minute for your prayers, your reflections, or simply listening to your breath. Please rise. Staying standing, this feeling of unity will be made stronger by knowing someone that you at this moment do not know. I'd like you to turn to the person behind you or in front of you, someone you did not come with, and ask what is in your heart at this moment? What is in your heart at this moment?
Take your seats.
I am Rachel Stock-Spilker. I'm one of the cantors here at Mount Zion. In the past few days, many in the Jewish community have said, this just hits so close to home. For me, it is home. A fourth-generation Pittsburgher, I felt fortunate to grow up in Squirrel Hill. I walked or drove by Tree of Life Synagogue almost daily, and I taught in their Hebrew school when I was in college. My family home was several blocks away. My sister still lives 2 blocks away. Many of my friends were or are still members. In most American cities, Jews tend to live in the suburbs, but in Pittsburgh, more than half of the Jewish community still lives in the city, mainly in Squirrel Hill. Some refer to it as a shtetl, a small Eastern European-like Jewish village where everyone knows each other. Though it is actually quite a diverse neighborhood, it has a distinctly Jewish flavor, and many people of other faiths and backgrounds there know some Hebrew or Yiddish words and expressions. It is Hamish, a homey, familiar, and comfortable place with lots of colorful characters and a deep sense of neighborhood pride. As one fellow Pittsburgher said, it's a place where people don't just talk about caring for one another. They simply do it. It is literally Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. He lived a mere few blocks away from Tree of Life. Many ask if I knew anybody who was killed or injured. I didn't personally know any of the 11 souls who were lost and the one who is still clinging to life in the hospital, though I have tangential connections, as any Jew would have in any community. But honestly, it doesn't really matter. It is now my responsibility, our responsibility, to learn from my Pittsburgh family and friends and from yours about these individuals. I need to know about their lives, not just about how they died. Thank you for being here to support my neighborhood, the larger Jewish community, and the human family. It is important to remember such goodness in our broken and heartbroken world.
I'm Beth Gendler. I'm the Executive Director of National Council of Jewish Women, Minnesota. Thank you, Mount Zion clergy and the entire Mount Zion community for opening your beautiful home to us. Thank you. I want to respectfully acknowledge that the land where we're gathered is the occupied territory of the Anishinaabe people. And as we honor the memories of the synagogue elders who perished in Pittsburgh, we also honor the memories of Vigil Jones and Maurice E. Stallard, who were murdered by a similar face of hate in Kentucky on Thursday. May all of their memories be only for a blessing. I want to personally thank our Interfaith partners who were the inspiration for tonight's gathering, especially to my Muslim sisters for being the first friends to reach out to me when they heard the news. I'd say that you don't know how much it means, except for you do. You know exactly how much it means to have friends and allies from outside your own community in times of grief and pain. Thanks to all of you for helping me resist the impulse to hide under the covers and instead bring all of us together in hope and healing. Sincere thanks to all of the elected officials and candidates for office who are here tonight. I wish we had the time to have you all speak, but probably this close to the election, nobody else does. But please do stand up so we can all thank you for showing up for us. I've had the honor to work closely with many of you, and I know that you're not here to pander or politic. You're here because you care for our community and you care deeply for many of us as friends. I know you're out there. Let us thank you, please. I want to take just a few seconds of personal privilege to thank my family for their support as we plan this gathering. I love you all so much, and the irony isn't lost on me that as a shooter destroyed 11 families and devastated a community this weekend, I wasn't spending enough time treasuring mine, and that makes me sad. I also have to acknowledge HIAS, the refugee resettlement organization that was named and targeted by the white supremacist terrorist whose victims we remember tonight. HIAS brought my father to this country. He escaped Nazi Germany on a kinder transport, spent the war in foster care in England, and was finally able to come to the US in 1946. It's not hyperbole to say that without HIAS, I wouldn't be here. And if there's a glimmer of hope that grows out of this horror, it's that more people will know about the amazing work that HIAS does that truly makes America great. It's now my... It's my honor to introduce Karen Ratz, Executive Director of Jewish Community Action and a great friend and fellow social justice warrior.
Now the microphone can return to where it belongs. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you, faith partners. Thank you, interfaith partners. Thank you, movement partners. Thank you, friends. Thank you, community and mishpucha. I'm Karen Rotz. I'm the Director of Jewish Community Action. We organize Jews in Minnesota for racial and economic justice, and the core of our work is building power together with communities most impacted by injustice. The Synagogue in Pittsburgh, Tree of Life, the worshipers within were not just targeted because they were Jews. They were targeted because they were Jews who supported an organization that helps to resettle and support refugees. They were targeted because they exercised their values as Jews, values that said, help the stranger, for you are strangers too. They were targeted for their beliefs about how to treat others, beliefs that I share, maybe some of you share, and we are in deep pain at their loss. Our community is in pain and fear. Some of us have felt alone, isolated. That's the goal of anti-Semitism and these attacks, to isolate us. The Tree of Life Synagogue and the organization HIAS, which I'm sure is responsible for bringing many of our families here. They were targeted because they were Jews who acted in solidarity with immigrants and refugees. Anti-Semitism is a tool that is being wielded to push us out of that solidarity and to turn us inward in fear. We're blamed and targeted for supporting immigrants and refugees to encourage us to stop doing it. But we won't stop. And we may be afraid, but we won't back down. We won't be silenced, and we will never abandon what our Jewish tradition has taught us, that we are all made in the image of God. This terrorist act, evidence that to some we are still the stranger, and we will always be the stranger, serves as a reminder to us that we must never turn our backs on solidarity. We are stronger together, and we will get through this together. This room tonight, this is the cure for isolation. This is the antidote for anti-Semitism. We support our Muslim neighbors, immigrants and refugees, and we stand with communities of color and indigenous people facing violence and erasure. Thank you for standing with us.
Assalamu alaikum, or shalom aleichem. To all of you, peace and blessings with you, the Islamic greeting and the Hebrew greeting. My name is Asma Muhammad, and I am with Reviving the Islamic Sisterhood for Empowerment, and also with the Muslim Jewish Women of Minnesota. And I'm here because Beth and Sarah and Christy and all of the women from the National Council of Jewish Women are my sisters. They're my family. And the elders who were killed, those are all of our elders. And we won't be able to hear their wisdom anymore, but we can learn from the hate that brought them down and even grow from the love that brings us to this room today. And I wanted to share a verse of my holy book, the Quran, with all of you. So I'm going to share in Arabic and then share the translation as well. إن الذين آمنوا والذين هادوا والنصارى والسابئين من آمن بالله واليوم الآخر وعملوا صالحا فلهم أجرهم عند ربهم ولا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون. Lo, those who believe, and those who are Jews and Christians, whoever believeth in the last day and in God and does right, surely their reward is with their Lord, and no fear shall come to them, and nor shall they grieve.
Good evening. My name is Noshina Hussein, and I'm the Executive Director of Reviving the Islamic Sisterhood for Empowerment, and also part of the Muslim Jewish of Minnesota. Today, we as Muslim women, we as Muslim women stand not simply as allies and in solidarity, but as your sisters, grieving the loss of our Jewish brothers and sisters, our elderly. Our hearts are broken as a house of the Almighty was attacked. Our house was attacked also. We pray for them and for their families. Today we mourn, tomorrow we resist. We resist the status quo, the hate, and the rise of white supremacy and anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. And then on Tuesday, we vote. Let us take back our country, our state, and elect officials who support sensible gun legislation, who support religious pluralism, and who will not back down to hate crimes. I leave you with a supplication from my faith. I'm going to first recite it in Arabic, and then I will read the translation. Allahumma anta adudi wa anta nasiri, bika ajulu wa bika asulu wa bika uqatilu. O Allah, you are my strength, you are my support, and for your sake I go forth, and for your sake I advance, and for your sake I fight. Thank you.
Hello, I'm the Reverend Nancy Nord-Bentz. I'm the Executive Director of Protect Minnesota and the Interfaith Alliance for Gun Safety. This beautiful congregation has been an active part of the Interfaith Alliance, and so we want to express our deepest consolation to you all on this terrible loss. I've also been asked to bring a Christian word to our meeting tonight, and the story that just kept coming back to me talks about how Jesus, during his time of ministry, is traveling around, and he gets the message that his very best friend in the world, Lazarus, is dying. And by the time he can get to the town, he gets there and he talks to Mary and Martha, Lazarus' sisters, Jesus' good friends, and they are weeping and they say, "You're too late, Lazarus is dead." And they're in such deep grief, and the whole community has come together into their home, and they're all mourning and weeping, and Jesus is swept away in the sadness. And together that whole town goes to the graveyard to visit Lazarus' tomb. And when they get there, through the tears coursing down his face, Jesus looks at these broken-hearted mourners and he says, "Take away the stone, the massive stone in front of the tomb," which is an odd request. And the people say, "You don't get it. He's been dead 4 days. It's too late." And Jesus said, "Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God?" And so these weeping, broken people working together move this massive stone away from the door of the tomb. And then Jesus calls Lazarus out of that place of death into life. The massive stone of calcified hatred and bigotry and white supremacy and gun violence in this nation will not be moved by some miraculous action on God's part, because God didn't put it there. Humanity did. And so even as we weep, and even as we mourn, and even as we grieve, we are being called to take away the stone. To move it ourselves by working together. And I believe that we can. And you believe that we can. And we all need to, after this beautiful night of tears, get out there, as Nashina said, and work together to move the stone so that life can come out of this terrible place of darkness.
Thank you all for coming tonight to share in prayer and grief with the Jewish community. I'm Rachel Joseph, the Executive Director at Survivors Lead, the only violence prevention organization led 100% by survivors. In 2003, on the holy day of Rosh Hashanah, a woman carried a gun in her purse as she walked through the sanctuary at Temple Israel, looking for my Aunt Shelley Joseph Cordell. Shelley was, of course, at home, making a fabulous meal for my family and I to celebrate the new year together. That Rosh Hashanah meal was the last time I saw Shelley alive. The woman with the gun in her purse found Shelley that Monday morning at the Hennepin County Government Center and shot her to death. Temple Israel has always been my family's safe, healing space. It was for my great-grandparents, grandparents, parents, and now it is to my children and me. Because a woman was able to go to a Minnesota gun show and buy a gun for $60 with no paperwork or background check required by Minnesota law, my family nearly lost our safe space at Temple Israel, and my heart breaks for the congregation at Tree of Life, where on Shabbat, a violent individual with easy access to an AR-15 stole that safe healing space from our community in Pittsburgh. We are heartbroken, we are devastated, we are weary, but as Jews, we must live our values of Tikkun Olam, healing the world. Now more than ever, we must wrap Tree of Life show and gun violence survivors in our love, in our protection, and our support. We must speak out against the hateful rhetoric that threatens our Jewish community, the immigrant community, and our Muslim brothers and sisters. We must do more as a faith community to prohibit the ownership of weapons of war, strengthen our background check system, and start assisting victims and survivors with legislation as well as our thoughts and prayers. Until we can change the laws, Survivors Lead will continue to lift up our fellow survivors, new in their trauma, by providing support and guidance as survivors navigate unsolved homicides, criminal trials, bureaucracy, and grief. We will continue to train and support survivors interested in running for public office. Survivors must lead so our numbers stop growing. Please join us in demanding more from our lawmakers, whose inaction results in daily gun violence in our communities and houses of worship. No more stolen places of solace and healing. Survivors Lead will intensify our commitment to stop gun violence, support survivors, and reduce the easy access to guns. Please join us in living this value of Tikkun Olam. As the Talmud says, he who saves one life, it is as if he has saved the entire world. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Rabbi Sim Glazer from Temple Israel. So what is exactly an appropriate call to action after such a sad and horrific occurrence? To strengthen ourselves, build more high-walled gated neighborhoods, secure our places of worship, arm our ushers and guards, be on constant vigilant watch. Maybe all these things. But at this moment in human history, the famous Talmudic dictum, Al tifrosh min hatzibur, comes to mind. Do not separate yourself from the community. But also a decidedly old, non-Talmudic, non-Jewish, non-biblical phrase, either we hang together or we hang separately. There is an odious divisiveness permeating our nation, and it's growing with each passing day. We are increasingly divided on an individual level and as a nation. The polarization of ideologies, the retreat into camps, the unwillingness to listen to one another, the finger pointing, the deep hatreds of people that we haven't taken the time to know and understand. The fear of others who appear foreign and unusual to us, the suspicions, the conspiracy theories, and ultimately the denial of a very important, profound truth, that at the end of the day, we share, every one of us, we share one humanity. We are one family. And that if we continue to pull ourselves away from each other, if we do not actively look out for the welfare of each other, we are in big trouble in this nation and in this world. So what is the call to action in our nation today? I believe it is to embrace community. But let's not limit the definition of community to those most like ourselves. Charity, as they say, may begin in the home, but it shouldn't stop in the home. Let us embrace the human community. No more building fences around ourselves. No more hiding behind anonymous tweets and websites that cater to our specific point of view and call for the virtual annihilation of the other. In the final analysis, we are one community. Though we may never be able to disassociate the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh from the events of this last Shabbat, we should remember something important about that community that we haven't mentioned yet tonight. That building was itself the home to multiple Jewish styles of worship. On any given day at that place, there were a number of different services with different kinds of Jews, with different kinds of religious practices occurring simultaneously under one roof. What a beautiful symbol of coexistence that place continues to be. How they embraced community, theirs and others, and how when tragedy struck, the neighboring non-Jewish communities embraced them as well, and now mourns alongside them. So what is the call to action on a night like this? In a world where we are constantly encouraged to be oppositional to those around us, I believe the best thing we can do is to make every effort to come together, to listen to one another just a little bit better, to learn about those who are different from us, and celebrate those differences. As Paul Wellstone told us so many times, we all do better when we all do better. This has never been more important. For sure, let us strengthen our religious communities. Let us strengthen our neighborhoods, our cities, our states, our country. But friends, let's keep our eye on the big picture, the messianic picture, the really big one. A world in harmony. The work begins now, today. Harmony, the virtual antidote to hate. Thank you.
I am Rabbi Marcia Zimmerman, also from Temple, Israel, and as I look out, the outpouring 2 days in a row for our community, for all of our communities, is heartwarming and truly a blessing. I want to just link 3 texts really quickly. One is Psalm 23, where it says, Ta'aruch lefanai shulchan neged tzorarai. You spread a table before me in the full view of my foes. Last night, Rabbi Kravitz at Rabbi Morris Allen's retirement party spoke about this line. You see, this moment is
the beautiful table where we show our foes what strength really is. This moment is the antidote to hatred. People say, how do we keep this going? It's easy to go to a service, and I want to say, not so easy. My shul is not full every Shabbos like this. We would like it if it was. Not so easy. It is wonderful and beautiful that you have come to this place. How do we continue the momentum? We continue it in every interaction in our lives. And as Isaiah says, Lo yisagoy el goy cherem, v'lo yamadu od milchama. Let us truly beat our swords into plowshares and our spears into pruning hooks. And then, as the poet says, we keep beating our plowshares into musical instruments so that if anybody wants war anymore, they will have to beat them back into plowshares first. Let us beat everything in our heart, our beating heart, into musical instruments as we join our voices in a song of God's protection, of the angels' protection. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. May you truly spread over us a shelter of peace.
Ufros aleinu sukat, sukat, shalomecha. Ufros aleinu sukat, sukat, shalomecha. La 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 Ufros aleinu sukat, sukat, shalomecha.
Good evening. My name is Sammy Rachamim, and I'm so grateful to you all for being present tonight. There will always be hateful people in this world. There will always be angry people with grievances both real and imagined. People with a yetzer hara, an inclination to do bad. An inclination to do bad so powerful that they are capable of murder. Our problem here in the United States is that we make it so terribly easy for hateful, angry people to do murder. 6 years ago, this unavoidable truth struck me and my family in the most personal way when my father, Reuven Rachamim, and 5 other fathers were senselessly killed with a gun at the business my father founded and built from the ground up. When I was a kid, my dad, who I called Abba, the Hebrew word for dad, epitomized the American dream to me. My Abba was born in southern Israel on a farming community with no running water or electricity. He made his way to America at the ripe age of 22, roughly how old I am now. He got himself into technical school, even though he was lacking in a high school diploma and was still picking up the English language. And he became an entrepreneur whose business fulfilled a societal need. Accent signage produced Braille signage that did not cause calluses on the fingers of the visually impaired, thus preserving the sensitivity in their fingertips, which is crucial for reading Braille. He also made sure that Accent was minimizing its carbon footprint and was recognized as a local and national leader in this respect. And he gave back to his communities as an active volunteer at Bethel Synagogue, as a member of former Minneapolis Mayor R.T. Ryback's Green Business Council, and as a commercial anchor in the Bryn Mawr neighborhood where Accent is located. And then, one angry man who stockpiled thousands of rounds of ammunition in his home chose to use his arsenal to shatter so many lives. My dad was 61 when he was killed, yet he had so much life ahead of him. He has 3 precious grandchildren who will grow up only hearing stories about their Saba, instead of having him by their side as their biggest cheerleader, which he so would have been. He wasn't there for me when I graduated high school, less than a year after the shooting. And he wasn't there for me at my college graduation earlier this year. So while I grew up as a very privileged boy and young man, the product of my parents' hard work and dedication, living our version of the American dream, I can't help but feel like my family now lives the American nightmare. And every single day in this country, another swath of families are shaken and shattered into this nightmare. We are here tonight to collectively grieve for the nightmare at Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh, where Rabbi Jonathan Perlman, the father of my childhood friend Tova Perlman, survived the shooting by hiding in a closet. For many Jews, a synagogue is a place of refuge. It certainly was for me in the year after my dad was killed. According to Jewish tradition, primary mourners, such as children of the deceased person, are obligated to recite the mourner's Kaddish, the Kaddish Yatom, daily in honor of their loved one for 11 months after their passing. And while I was never so strictly observant of many of Judaism's commandments, I made a commitment to say the Kaddish for my Abba at least once a day, or at least as often as possible for those 11 months. That mitzvah, that commandment to say Kaddish, which can only be said in the presence of a minyan, a group of 10 or more adults praying together, that mitzvah gave me a reason to get out of bed each morning and to be at shul by 7 a.m. for Bethel's daily minyan. And each morning I could count on the same dozen or so men and women to be there and chant Amen after each line of the Kaddish Yatom. As my friend Aiden Pink, a Minnesota native who is reporting for the Jewish Daily Forward from Pittsburgh, noted on Sunday on Facebook, he wrote, quote, "As terrible as yesterday was, it could have been so much worse. If the shooting had happened just last week when there was a bat mitzvah in the building with hundreds of guests, or even if the shooter who arrived at the scheduled service time of 9:45 had known that most Jews don't bother showing up until much later, course, that meant that the people he killed were the minion makers, the stalwarts, the pillars of the community. I don't really know what to do with that information, but I can't shake it." End quote. I can't shake it either. Upon learning this fact, I immediately thought of my own minion makers, the ones who show up every day, so mourners like me, like I was, will never be alone. Yehi zichronam livracha. May their memories of the Tree of Life minion makers and all victims of gun violence be for a blessing. Thank you.
I'm Rabbi Tamar Grimm. I'm the Associate Rabbi at Beth Jacob Congregation in Mendota Heights. At our congregation, before we recite the Mourner's Kaddish, which Sammy so beautifully just described, we say the following words: Zecher Tzadik Livracha, the memory of the righteous, is only for a blessing. Tonight we remember those who lost their lives with words of blessing on their lips. They were the kind of righteous who show up on time to make sure there's a minyan, a quorum for the morning prayers. In their lives, they dedicated themselves to blessing and living their lives as a blessing. Tonight, we remember and honor them: Melvin Wax, Joyce Feinberg, Richard Gottfried, Rose Mallinger, Jerry Rabinowitz, Cecil Rosenthal, David Rosenthal, Bernice Simon, Sylvan Simon, Daniel Stein, Irving Younger. The Jewish instinct to say Kaddish is felt tonight. But when Rabbi Spilker and I discussed what would be appropriate for this evening, we decided it didn't quite fit. So I offered this prayer instead of Kaddish. Instead of Kaddish, the prayer said by closest relatives, those we call official mourners, said only after our loved one has been buried, dirt shoveled until backs ache, hands washed before returning to prayer, and eating, always the eating. The Kaddish, not an expression of mourning, but an affirmation of life, like the first forced bite of round, hard-boiled egg, bringing us back to awareness of our own lives, propelling us forward, knowing our lives will never be the same. Instead of Kaddish, because how can a community bury 11 people in a single day? Because we are not shoveling dirt, because we are not shoveling food into our mouths brought to us by so many relatives and neighbors. Instead of Kaddish, because we are not here to share memories and learn lessons from those who died, or find inspiration in the way they lived in order to bring their values forward into the next generations. Instead of Kaddish, because we mourn as an extended family, connected through Abraham and Sarah, Hagar, or Adam and Eve, connected through our shared sense of faith. Instead of Kaddish, because, as it says in the Kaddish, above and beyond all the blessings and hymns, praises and consolations that are ever spoken in the world, because we not only ask for peace, but we dedicate ourselves to working for peace, for us and for all who dwell on this earth, Aleinu ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imru. Amen. And let us say together, Amen.
Those who sow in tears, will reap in joy, will reap in joy. Those who sow in tears, will reap in joy. Those who sow in tears will reap in joy, will reap in joy. Those who sow in tears will reap in joy.
Amen. Friends, we have been gathered here in prayer, in solidarity, in memory, and in a moment now to appreciation and finally to action. And it is not just us in this sanctuary space. We have our chapel that has been filled with people who are joining us tonight. We have our Johnson Social Hall upstairs that is filled with people tonight. We have our hallways that are filled tonight, our boardroom which is filled tonight, outside on the lawn, hundreds of people with their phones, people through live streaming that are connecting. We are connected in an interconnected web of love and support and community. And I want to say on all of our behalf, a deep, deep thank you to Beth, Karen, Nashina, Asma, Nancy, Rachel, all the people who helped organize this. Let's give them a round of applause. We are turning to our final song, which is about love. It comes from Psalms, Olam Chesed Yibaneh. I'd like to invite all clergy who are able to make it to this bima to come join us and stand on this bima from all faiths who are here. Please join us up here. The words are on the bottom of your program. Olam Chesed Yibaneh, a world of kindness will be built.
Olam Chesed Yibaneh, ta-da-dai, dai-dai, ya-da-dai-dai. Olam Chesed Yibaneh, ta-da-dai, dai-dai, ya-da-dai-dai. Olam Chesed Yibaneh, ta-da-dai, dai-dai, ya-da-dai-dai.
I'm Rabbi Esther Adler from Mount Zion Temple. I invite you please to rise for a final blessing. We must build this world from love. So much love that there is no room for hate. We must build this world from love, love born of tolerance, of friendship, of trust, of laughter at nobody's expense, of hope. Of hope, born of voices raised together in prayer, in solidarity, in protest. Hope born of community, of tikkun, of votes. And when we build this world of love, when we build this world of love, behold how good it will be. Lech l'shalom, go in peace.